Hello, I'm back. So today I'm going to talk to you about the role of a counsellor or a therapist because what do we actually do? I had a student say to me once, and I thought it was a really good point. Counsellors, or the word counsel, basically means to give advice or to give guidance. But the role of a therapist or a counsellor is not to do either of those things. A good therapist should never advise you or tell you what to do. And they might give you some psychoeducation. Therapists have a lot of great knowledge about psychology, attachment, how people work. So they have that context there to help you. But therapists aren't here to give you advice. I had a friend's son say to him, "Why would I need a therapist if I've got a girlfriend? Why would I need a therapist if I've got a good group of friends?" And what I would say is that best practice is to have a really great group of friends or romantic connections, family, people that you can talk to, maybe chosen family. Definitely have those things, but have a therapist as well if you feel that that would be beneficial. It's not that people who have therapists or counselors that they don't have strong social connections. In fact, going to therapy can and does help strengthen all of your relationships. It's not one or the other, it's that therapy can be done in uh, at the same time. So, what do counselors and therapists do if we're not giving advice and we're not telling people what to do? What are we doing? So, when you're talking to a friend, you automatically have a bias about them. You probably feel very positively, very warmly towards your friend, and you want what's best for them. And therapists feel the same way about their clients often. We do want what's best for you, but that is the key differing thing. We want what's best for you. Therapists recognize that you are the expert on yourself, so only you know what is best for you. Sometimes with friends, they can think within the context of your friendship, you should do this, or why don't you do this? I know what you're like as a person, so you should do this. Why don't I help you do X, Y, and Z? And it can feel, as somebody's friend, that you're being generous and you're being kind by telling them what to do or being productive and giving advice. But sometimes people just want to be listened to. All of us have a very unique living experience. We all have expertise on our lived experience and what it's like to be us. And sometimes talking to somebody about the situation you find yourself in, when they turn around and say, "Well, why don't you just do this? If I was you, I would just do that. Oh, it's clear you just need to break up with them. Oh, it's clear you just need to, I don't know, set a boundary with them." And that might be the case, but imagine if you say to a friend, so they're coming to you and talking about their relationship, and you say to them, "Well, why don't you just break up? I don't think you should be with this person. My view of your partner is this. I think you'd be better off." You're interjecting a lot of your opinions into the situation, and your friend may take that on board and it may guide what they think. But also, if your friend decides to stay with that person and they have issues with them again, they may not want to come back and talk to you about it for fear of judgment because they're still with that person. They know that you've said, don't be with them. You know that you've given your advice and you've given your guidance. And there might be a feeling of, if I haven't done what my friend has said, they're going to judge me. So I don't want to talk about my relationship problems anymore because I've spoken to them about it 1,000 times and nothing's changed and I'm not ready to change, whatever. And why it's different with a therapist or a counselor is that you can come to us and talk to us about anything. It's not our job to judge you. We don't have any expectations of outcome. This is completely your time to talk about what's bothering you. And we don't have a bias, whereas your friends might be biased about you, about your friendship, your relationship. But being biased towards somebody includes knowing who they are to you, knowing what their partner is like, knowing about their personality, and using those things to kind of determine how you listen to somebody. I don't know if this is making any sense. With a friend, so if we go back to that example of they're maybe in a relationship that you think, I don't like their partner, that is going to steer what advice you give to them. But because they're your friend, you might also find it difficult to challenge them or to say, we talk about this a lot, or you talk about this a lot. I've told you what I think, and you're not listening to me. So I'm happy to be here for you, but I don't know what to tell you anymore. With a therapist, it's different in that a client can come to us and we can talk about the same problem over and over and over and over again. And that's fine. We're not judging you. We do have time for you. We want to hear about the thing. There are 50 minutes or so, however long your session is, and all of that time is for you to talk about things. There's no expectation. There's no condition of how long you talk for. There's no boredom. There's no judgment for the fact that you're bringing this thing up again. We're here to listen to you no matter what the thing is. And don't get me wrong, when it comes to an unhealthy relationship or a situation you're going through that's detrimental to you, a therapist might challenge you and say, as you're telling me this, what do you think about what you've just said to me? If a friend were in that situation, what would you say to them? What are you expecting me to say about what you're telling me right now? And we might use self disclosure and say, I feel a bit defensive of you right now, or I feel a bit sad that you've just said that about yourself, whatever it is. So we might we might self disclose. That doesn't make us biased. It's just offering something back to the person. And thinking about what I said about when somebody doesn't do what you say to them, there can be a feeling of resentment or a feeling of not being respected or not being listened to. And in our everyday relationships, that feeling might be there. But with a therapist, it's quite different in that we've been trained to not find value in rescuing or fixing other people. And perhaps you're thinking about therapy training or becoming a therapist or becoming a counsellor because part of you thinks, I'm really good at giving advice. I've got great life experience. I'm really wise. I want to help people. But how would it then feel if you're working with clients and they come to you and they're not taking your advice or your guidance? How would that feel? It can often feel like feeling rejected or feeling that, oh, then they're not appreciating me, they're not valuing me. And this can fit into a pattern of rescuing and trying to rescue somebody from what they're going through, from their feelings. It might come from a place of real care for them and wanting what's best for them, but it can also backfire. And if being a therapist was all about people coming to us for advice and guidance and telling me what to do, that can fit into a pattern for the client of being rescued and of feeling like a victim or feeling powerless or that they can't make decisions for themselves, which is not the case. Everyone is capable, and actually, we are the best people to give ourselves the best advice. It might just need some unlocking and some exploring. Advice that I give to people is within my frame of reference as a person. As a therapist, I need to let that go and realize that I need to build somebody up to be able to make the decisions that are best for them within their context, within their culture, within their lived experience. So, my advice to somebody could be really ignorant. It could disregard what it's like to be a certain age or a certain religion or have a certain mental health diagnosis. I can say, why don't you just do this? And it probably won't fit that person. My job is to actually figure out and step into the world of that person, find out what it's like to be them, and help them and empower them to make decisions for themselves. If you come to me, ask me what to do, I'm more likely to say, it strikes me that you're the one in this situation and you're far better qualified to figure out what to do than I am. So let's talk together about what you feel you want and how we can get there. In a future video, I will talk about something that we call the external locus of evaluation in psychology. But so many of us are informed about what we should do, how we should be, what decisions we should make, how we should present, who we should fall in love with, what job we should have, etc., based on societal expectations, cultural ones, religious ones, based on what parents want for us, what our friends want for us, what gender norms say. There's all these external locuses which inform how we think we should be. And it can make us really miserable to follow those things. If you go to your therapist and they show up as another external locus of what would Beth say, what would Beth want me to do, what would Beth's advice be, that just adds another thing for you to cling on to, where you're not actually being your authentic self making decisions. you're making decisions based on what other people want, and they might not be the decisions that are best for you. So therapy is about taking away all those external expectations where the therapist doesn't have any expectations of you either, and you work together to figure out what's best for you without advice, guidance, rescuing, or fixing. Am I making sense? I hope so. Therapy ultimately emboldens people to find their own solutions and take ownership of their life, is how I've whittled it down. Another good point is that if a client relies on their therapist to fix things or to give them advice, then the client becomes dependent on you. And it's really difficult to then sort of graduate from therapy if there becomes this dependence on, okay, I'll go to therapy and Beth will tell me what to do. And perhaps at first there'll be ways of learning how to ask yourself what you want, or learning how to be in touch with your authentic self, learning how to ground yourself, learning how to set boundaries. All of those things can be taught or modeled in therapy, but once you get an idea of what that is, you should be able to move away from therapy and maybe have therapy less and eventually not go to therapy, and you might return to it. But we don't want clients to become dependent on us, because that creates a need then. A therapist shouldn't be needed. A therapist should be wanted. Thinking about when you've helped somebody yourself, or when you give friends advice, or you listen to them, or give help and guidance. Was there anything that you expected from them in return? For example, to take your advice, or to say, that's really great advice, thank you so much, or to feel yourself, to feel needed, to feel appreciated, to feel important, to feel wise. It's funny being a therapist, because I have trained and done training and done qualifications for 5 or 6 years. And I have this whole bank of knowledge there. But in the therapeutic relationship, there isn't a hierarchy of you're seeking me to help you. The whole point of therapy and being a counsellor is that you're on a level playing field. I don't know more about you than you do. But I think that's really important to remember, that we're not professionals versus clients. We're not the helper versus the one who needs help. There is inherently a sort of power dynamic when you're seeking therapy. The client is making themselves more vulnerable than the therapist is, but the therapist is there to empathize and to be human and to reflect back what they're seeing and hearing and feeling from the person. If we go to a therapist to be listened to and they start giving advice, that's not really what we've asked for, and it can feel a bit patronizing. As a therapist or counselor, you need some humility to say, I want to listen to what life's like for you. I want to hear about your problem, and together let's figure out what the right thing is to do for you. If you're thinking about becoming a counsellor or a therapist, I really recommend getting this textbook. It's Counselling Skills and Studies by Fiona Ballantyne Dykes, Tracy Postings, and Barry Kopp. They do new versions of this semi-regularly. So this is the most recent one, it's pink. This is the third edition. It's by CPCAB. And I just want to say, I've heard people say, like, therapy is the work of enabling somebody, something along those lines of, you're just enabling somebody to talk about themselves and to kind of validate what they're saying and to nod and smile. And if the therapist isn't giving advice, it can feel like they're just colluding with the client. And I'm here to say that that doesn't happen, or it shouldn't happen. Therapy should not be easy. It should not be going into a room, telling somebody about what's going on for you, and them just saying, yeah, you're right, oh, your friend sounds awful, and that's really terrible for you. It should never just be a circular conversation like that. The therapist can use self-disclosure and observations about the client to challenge them and to say, I hear what you're saying. I've heard you talk like this, or I've heard you say this. I just want to challenge you there. Wonder if this feeds into your pattern of avoidance, or we've spoken about this thing quite a few times over the last few weeks. How are you feeling about it? Is it helpful for you to talk about the same thing, or do you want me to rescue you? What are you looking for in this? And do you think you're ready to make changes in your life, or is it enough to just use this space to talk? Therapy isn't about enabling somebody. It's not about doing nothing. It's not about sitting there and nodding. It's about observing somebody, picking things out that you're hearing, offering it back to them in a way that we don't really get to have very often. You know, a therapist might say, "I've noticed that you start laughing when you're talking about difficult things. What's going on there? I notice that you smile when really you want to cry. What do you think that's about?" And you will be very seen by a therapist. I recognize that that's only possible if you feel very safe. And the way to create a safe environment is for a therapist to be empathetic, to demonstrate this thing called unconditional positive regard, which I will explain further in another video, and to be non judgmental. And part of being non judgmental is to remove the expectations of the client. So I do not expect you to get better. I do not expect you to make changes unless you're ready to. You can talk about the same thing a million times over. I'm not going to judge you for it. I do not expect to give you advice, and if I did, I wouldn't expect you to take it. My only expectation of clients is that they want to be there and that they have something to talk about. Is there anything else I want to say about this? Let me have a look in here. If you do get the Counselling Skills and Studies textbook, page 34 onwards talks about it quite concisely. It talks about how important it is to feel understood in order to be honest and open about who we are and how we feel. And if we don't feel understood, we can feel judged and begin to feel uncomfortable and ashamed or even angry towards the person trying to help us. And people don't really want to talk about their problems and difficulties with someone if they don't feel understood. So that's why empathy and non-judgment is really important, but also the therapist's ability to step into the person's frame of reference. That's really important. Perhaps we take it for granted how much listening and just sitting with somebody, how helpful and important that is. The other thing that I haven't really touched on is the fact that it's not a two-way conversation. Therapy is not, okay, I've spoken enough about myself, how are you? There isn't that. And I think that's actually really important because maybe this is particularly British culture of feeling bad for talking about ourselves or feeling bad about taking up space in the conversation. Anyway, enough about me. How often do we hear people say that? But with therapy, the whole time is for you. That's what the space is for. And I think that can be really useful to remember that with friends, partners, family, sometimes it feels that you need somewhere else to talk about things, somewhere with somebody who doesn't know your family, who doesn't know your partner, who doesn't know your workplace, who doesn't know the people that you're talking about. So you can go to a therapist and talk about anybody, and it's not going to go back to them. And that creates a sense of security and a sense of trust and a sense of non-judgment. It removes the bias from the conversation, and it creates a sort of freedom to say how you really truly feel, because you're not thinking about protecting your therapist's feelings. Whereas if you were talking to your partner about perhaps a family member or a mutual friend, you would be very careful about the truth that you reveal, the feelings that you reveal, how authentic you're being, for fear of how it's going to affect them. Whereas with a therapist, you actually don't need to worry about their feelings because they can handle it and they don't know the people you're talking about. So it can create some real moments of clarity of, I can't even tell you how many times a client has said, "I've never said this before," or "I've never told anyone this before," or just a reaction to hearing themselves say the thing for the first time. And it's a thing they might not say to a friend or say to a partner or say to family, but they can say it in the therapy room because it's confidential. It's not going to go anywhere else. And that in itself creates a space for discovery and a space for change. So I hope that was helpful. I didn't really plan what I was going to say in this video, so sorry if it was a bit all over the place. But ultimately, as I said at the beginning, therapy or a therapist is not a substitute for a friendship or family. Therapy can be really helpful in modeling what a good connection with somebody can look like. Okay, that's me for today on that topic. And I think next time I'll look at how you become a therapist and how to train to become a counsellor and what accredited courses there are and how to find them. Okay, hope it was helpful. If you have any more questions or anything you need clarifying, then let me know. And I will see you soon.